Hi, Amaka, we're live.
All right.
All right, so we are here again. Okay, so good evening, guys. Let's see. I thought I was sharing my screen already. I think I have to share again. Let me do that so we don't take too much time on today's call. So yeah, I'm sharing my screen now. Do well to let me know if you can see my screen. Let's quit a couple of apps that we have opened up here. Um, right, let's quit Stoplight Studio. Let's quit Postman. We're actually going to be looking at a tool here, Insomnia, right? We're going to be making API requests, and I want to simply show you guys, for now on the front end, how to simply, make API requests through your Vue.js application, right? So I have an example project here that we'll be exploring. Very simple. Very simple code base, right? We just have a block card, right? I think I need to also zoom in. Let's see. Okay, much better. I'll take this off. Oh, good evening, Odibas. Good evening, Obasi Ikechukwu. All right. So we have our simple application here. So this is just a blog, right? Just to show you what this looks like. If I should go ahead and run this with npm run dev, that is the command we use for running this. Okay, so when I run npm run dev, just to show you what it looks like, I'm going to run this. Okay, I think we can just click on this and open the URL on our browser. So let's see, I have to navigate to slash blogs, I believe. All right, so you see we have the blogs loaded on this page. Okay, now these blogs are coming from the store because we decided to also utilize the store. We have already explored Pinia, right? So you see we have the blogs item here in the store, and then we have a function, right, under the action section, actions. So we have a function for fetching these blogs, and we're fetching these blogs from the JSON placeholder.typicode.com/post. Now, this is an API, right? You are not building an API just yet, so we're simply calling. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. I think Amaka, can you hear me?
I think we lost. Okay, yes, now we lost it for some seconds. I couldn't hear it for some seconds. That's why I came off stage.
Okay. Um, all right, give me a minute. Let me quickly switch to a different provider. All right, thank you for that. So I'm going to, okay, I think someone said you can hear me. Okay, I'll zoom in, let's zoom in. All right, so I hope this is much better. Okay, so what I was saying is that we have our Vue application, right? We have our blog store. Okay, so we created a blog store, and all we are doing in the blog store is to fetch blogs. Now we don't even need, to set all these ones for now. I can take them off just to show you that we are not using. All we're doing here is we are making an API call. This is the function for making that API call. So as you can see, it's an asynchronous function, right? The same way you write your asynchronous function in JavaScript, just async fetch blocks, and then we have try catch block, just in case there's an error, so we can of course, see that particular error, right? And we say await actions.get. Now, what exactly is actions? Now, this is basically what I want to, show you for a start. So let's navigate to npm. All right, so let's just go to npm.io. Um, I believe that should be npm.io. Okay, so I'm going to search for Axios. All right, so AXIOS. Okay, so you see this is a promise-based HTTP client for browser and Node. So we can simply make a request using this particular package. Now you can perform this search with npm.io. You can also choose to go straight to the npm repository website itself. All right, so we are simply using the npm.io website for now. So I simply put in the package name. Are you sure? Are you guys sure that this is from my end? Okay. Can you see the Axios page? Are you very sure this is from my end?
I think what I can see
Hi,
here is
Amaka. Is it
your
the same
code,
thing for
your
you?
virtual editor.
Hi,
So
Amaka.
I
Is
can
it
see
the
your
same
virtual
thing on your
editor.
end?
Yes.
All
Can you
right.
hear me?
I will share again. Someone
Okay.
said. Someone said. Okay. Someone said no. I'm wondering. I'm going to just stop sharing, and I will share again. All right. So I'm sharing again. Please confirm if you can see my screen. I'm sharing again.
I can see your screen.
All right, thank you. Okay, so let's just go back to the page npm.io. So as I was saying, we can search for packages using npm.io, or we can just go to the official npm, repository, right? So we can simply go to the npm repository. Okay, so the official npm repository page, this is it here. That is npmjs.com, right? So we can go to npmjs.com and perform that search, right? So if I search for Axios, which is the package that we are using for making those API calls, when I search for Axios, you see we also get the same information. It's a promise-based HTTP client, right? So let's click on that. Okay, so we're using this to basically make API calls, right? So this is the exact match. Now, one thing about using this page is that there are ways to check the quality of the package. So you can check the quality of the package. If the package is being maintained, the popularity of the package, and the reason for checking those items is you want to be very sure, right, that the package you're selecting for your application is is the popular option, is the option that is being maintained at least to some extent, is the option that also has that, quality. Okay, so the first one is what we are looking for. That's why you see we have exact match. We have other, Axios packages, related to, basically, they are used for performing, HTTP requests as well. Some of them are, specific for some libraries, right? Like Axios, Next.js Axios is specific for Next.js library, but this is what we're looking for. So all you have to do is click on that. When you click on it, you can see the description of that package, right? Including, the documentation. You can read through the documentation, also including the example, how to simply install and use this, package, depending on the package manager you are using. We have been using npm, so we just have to follow this first option, right, for installation. If you are using some other package, managers like Boa, like Yarn, PNPM, these are how you perform installation with those package managers. And it also shows you how to, go ahead and use the package, right? So you see, it's showing us how to perform, a GET request using that package. Now, when we start learning backend programming, we are going to explore, GET, POST, and the rest of them. We have lots of patterns when we're making requests to the backend, right? You can be getting something, you can be posting something to the backend, you can be updating using put or patch, or you can be deleting something using .delete. Okay, so we're going to explore all those later on. But for now, I'm just going to show you how to make this API request using Actions. So what you have to do is to click on this button here, right? This would copy the command. Remember, I mentioned that you can also use this package, this website. If I search for Axios from here, I see the same package, right? And I can simply scroll down. You see, we're looking at the same thing basically, right? This is just a lighter version of a website where you can get the details of these packages. Okay, so I can still select and copy this. All right, same thing. Okay, so now that I've copied that command, I can simply go back into my terminal, right? Which can be the terminal I have. It can be the terminal I have right here, or it can be the terminal inside my application. So let me cancel what I'm doing here. I was running the package initially. I was running the application initially, so I can cancel that and I can paste this in here. npm install actions. Make sure you are in the directory, right, of your project so that you can successfully install the package actions. And this is what we'll be using to make API calls in our project. So let's go ahead and press enter. I already have this installed in this application, so it won't take any time. You see, it's already telling us that this is up to date, right? It's already installed. Okay, so now that this is installed, how do you use it? So you see, I have Axios right here. Let's go back to the top. The first thing I did was to import Axios with import Axios from Axios. Okay, so this is how we import Axios into our application, and then we can go ahead to use Axios by simply saying axios.get. Now, what exactly are we getting? We are getting the data from this endpoint, right? This endpoint is something we can open up on our browser just to see the kind of data that is returned. And when I press this, you see these are the data returned. User ID, title, body, right? And we have a lot of them here. I guess it's about 100, right? I think it's about 100 of them, 100 messages. When you go to that URL. Okay, if I go to /users, we're also going to see some user information. I think about probably 20, I guess. Okay, so the point is, oh, I think it's about 10 of them. All right. So the point is, this API already exists. It is, built by someone simply for testing purposes. So we can all use it for testing. This is the posts, right? The blog post, and the other part is to see user information. All right. So now that we're looking at the blog post, this is exactly what we added here, and then we, reduce the amount of items presented on our screen to 5. Right. So this is for limiting the amount of blog that we save in our state to just 5. We can increase this to 20 if we want to, right? So if I go ahead and run this again with npm run dev, we are going to see 20 blogs, on this particular port. So let's copy this back to the browser. Okay, so I have to go to slash blogs, remember. So slash blogs is going to load 20 blogs, right? One, two, three. So we have six, we have 12, we have, I think, about 18, 19, 20. So we have 20 blog items right here. Okay, for now we are just showing the heading. We're not showing the body. Okay, so the idea is we fetch the blog from here, we save the blog inside our state this.blogs, which is simply blogs, right? So we save the blog in here, and of course if we inspect this page, like I've shown you before in our previous session, if we inspect this page, since we already have Vue DevTools installed, by the time we check out Pinia, you are going to see the blog items within the Pinia store. Okay, so that was not loaded. Let's refresh again. All right, so now that we're refreshing again, we should see Pinia up here. Okay, so if I click on Pinia, you see we have the blogs, which is an array of 20 items, and we can see those blog items in here. All right, so these are the block items. Each of them are found in here. Okay, so the count starts from 0 to 19, giving us 20 objects. All right, so we can see all those items. These are the exact items that are rendered on this page. Okay, so you see the title SUNTAUT, which is what we have here, SUNTAUT. That was the first item. So let's check out the last item, QUI. Let's scroll down to the last item. So I think this did not, oh yeah, so it's basically DOL because we're rendering the title, DOLOR, right? DOLOR, that's the last item we have on the list of blogs. Okay, so we can choose to check out the blogs page. So this is the blogs page. Basically, we first fetch all those blog items from the state, and then we render those blog items within the blog card. The blog card is imported from the component folder, which is what we have right here, the blog card. So this is the blog card right here. So we were able to create this card and we assigned, the props, remember? So the blog props is going to be an array of items. Basically, it's going to be an object, not an array of items, but an object. So we're going to have individual blog item, picking up these components. So each blog would have a title. You see, we have description, right? So we have the title, the description, and the image, but unfortunately, our API does not really get us images, okay? So we can probably take that off. Let's comment on that. So when we comment on that, you see the image section there is gone, all right? But now we have the title, we don't have the description. So let's figure out why we don't have that description showing up, okay? So now you see it is called body, not description. So we can change this to body, all right? When we save this and go back to our page, you see that now we have the body item showing up. Let's look at the last item there, and this is the body of that item, which is exactly what we have here. All right, so I hope that is clear. I hope you can see this very well. Okay, so that is exactly what we have here. Now this is how we were able to fetch blogs and render those blogs in our application, right? We're using Axios, but let's just take a look at the script section here in our blogs.view. All right, so of course we are importing the blog card. If you take a look at this, you see we are also importing the use blog store, right? Which is exactly what we have in the blog store. So we have the use blog store. I've shown you how to do this already. I believe most of you that attended that class, understand what we are doing here. We are simply bringing the blog item from the use blog store. So let's go back to the blogs.view page. So when we import the use blog store, we simply have to, come into the mounted section, right? This is the lifecycle hook. We are saying that when we mount this page, right? When this page is mounted, go ahead and fetch the blogs, right? First, make that API call and fetch the blog items, all right? So right here, you see, we simply say const blog store equals use blog store, and then now we have access to the blog store. So now we now said await blogstore.fetch blogs. This is the exact line of code that fetches those blogs. If I comment this code, by the time this page is mounted, what you're going to see is that the blogs will not be rendered because we did not make that call to fetch the blogs. Okay, so let's close down on this. Let's bring it back. So now that I've brought it back, you see that the blocks are rendered because now we have the blocks. If I take that off again and I save, when I refresh this page, these blocks will not be fetched. Okay, so now you see we have block array with 0 item. All right. So if I go back and I uncomment that, when I save and I mount the page, so now you see the blog items are here now again. Okay. So now we have 20 blog items. All right. So the next thing we did here was to say this dot blogs equals blog store dot blogs. Now this dot blogs here refer to the blogs we have in the data section, right? Remember, this is the options API. We have the blog items in the data section. Okay, and then we are simply saying that the blog store.blogs, which are the blogs we have here, all right. Remember that after calling fetch blogs, those blogs will be fetched and passed into the blog array. Okay, now this is the blog array that we'll call in the next line, right? After fetching the blogs, we basically pass the blogs into the blogs data that we have here. All right, so this blogs is what you're seeing here, and then blog store.blogs is what you see right here. Okay, hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, do let me know. All right, so now we are now saying this dot is loading equals false, because if we have been able to get all the blocks, we have to turn off is loading. What does is loading do for us in this particular page? Now by default is loading is true, and when is loading is true, we display loading. Can you see that? We display loading. So we said v if is loading, right, which means if it's still loading, display loading. All right. If it's done loading, right, if it's done loading, go ahead and display what you have within this div, which is the block card that holds the block cards, which is a grid. Block cards is a grid. You can take a look at that from here. It's a grid that holds the blog items. All right, so the block card is a grid that holds the blog items. Nice. So we can also go ahead to render more items like the blog ID and all that. That is not necessary, by the way. But the point is we are rendering those blogs and we fetch those blogs from a server, right? And now we also saved the fetched blogs into our Pinia state, and we're able to fetch the blogs from the Pinia state. Okay, so after doing this, you can simply access more pages on our website and reuse the blog items that you already fetched, so you don't have to fetch it multiple times. Okay, so we can go to a different page and make that call to use the same blog item without fetching a second time. Hope that makes sense, guys. This code will be shared with you, of course. And I want you. The reason why I'm showing you this is because you guys are going to be making API calls in the project. In the task that we gave to you. So at least I want you to see how you can make those API calls. You can decide to make the API call directly inside your code right here without having to do that from the store, right? If we don't want to use the store, we can simply go ahead and copy this, right? So we can copy this into the blogs.vue. Okay, we can simply add methods, for example, and we can add a particular method. So let's just go back in here and copy the whole function. So we can bring this here as a function, right, called fetch blogs. So right here we can just comment on this guy. Okay, we can just comment on this guy. So we can simply say give us this dot fetch blogs. All right, so after calling this dot fetch blogs on mounted, if we are able to get the blogs, just go ahead and take off is loading, right? So let's correct that. Is loading equals false. Okay, so as you can see, this is saying let's see, it's saying we have an error, and we have an error because we need to import Axios here as well. So import Axios from Axios. Okay, so by the time we perform that import, this error will go away. All right, so now you can see we no longer have the error. And if I go back to the page and I refresh the page, so let's see what we get when I refresh the page. So you see the blog is still loading, but as you can see, this blog is not actually loading from the Pinia store, right? You see we don't really have any data from the Pinia store, this is loading within that page. Now that you're doing this, if you route to a different page, you are not going to get access to this data, right? But if you are using the Pinia store, you can simply have access to this data without making an API call for the second time, right? Without using the Pinia store, if we go to a different page, we need to make that API call again in order to get the data. Hope that makes sense. All right. So we are able to make this API call from here, and we can also make the API call from the store. I'm going to leave the example where I made the API call from the store, so that by the time I share this with you, you can play around with that and you can experiment with other examples on your own. All right. So now let's minimize our code editor for now. Let's just check out the other tool that I mentioned we're going to check out, which is Insomnia. Okay, of course, most of you might have heard of Postman, right? The thing is, I love exploring a lot of tools. Most of the guys that work with me also also like that idea of exploring lots of tools, right? I'm a big fan of exploring software development tools, and because of that, I've been able to learn how to use so many tools to automate my workflows. I've been able to learn how to use so many tools to design and build software applications, right, faster than others. Okay. For now, we are going to just take a look at Insomnia, but along the line, before the end of this program, you'll be learning a lot of tools from HTTP Rapid API, Postman, Stoplight Studio for API design, and a lot more. All right. So let us explore Insomnia for now. You can simply navigate to the Insomnia website, right, which is what I have right here. This is insomnia.rest. Okay, so I'll be dropping that in the chat. Hopefully, let's see. Hopefully, those guys on LinkedIn, I don't know if you're watching from LinkedIn, you can simply navigate to the website insomnia.rest. This is my screen. Okay, so yeah, this is an app that you can use to design, debug, and test your API locally or in the cloud, right? So all you have to do is download this, or yeah, you can basically download this or use yeah, so I think you simply have to download this first, right? Set up maybe like a cloud account as well, so that you can also invite others to work alongside with you, right? So this is insomnia.rest. This is what the tool looks like. Simply go ahead and download this tool. I'm sure you can do that from here. Let's say go to products, click on this, all right, and you should be able to download. Now this is me searching for a download button. Probably I will just start off with start testing for free. This is the free option. Okay, I think maybe what they've done is you probably have to sign up first and get the download button from the download page. But I'm going to try a different option here. So let's see if we have the download option on the. Okay, so I am going to. Oh yeah, we have download. Okay, so click on download. Oh, nice. Okay, so you can simply navigate to insomnia.rest/download. Okay, and you would see the option for your operating system. This is saying for Mac OS because I am using a Mac, right? But if you're using a Windows or a Debian system like Ubuntu, right, you will simply get the option from here. So this link will take us to download from Windows for Windows, and this will take us to download for Ubuntu. And I'm sure we still have other options. So you can click on see all downloads if the operating systems I just mentioned is not something you use. All right, so if I click on this, it's going to download the Mac option. I already have that installed on my machine. So this is what Insomnia looks like. All right, so yeah, I mean, I already signed in as well. You can simply create requests, create collections. Let's just click on this first. So you see, I can join an organization or create a new organization. I already have a default organization from here, right? If I go back one step, you see I have my organization and I have a single collection in here. All right. I can choose to create, a collection. I can choose to pull a collection. I can also click on the plus sign here to create a collection. So let's click on this, and I'm going to call this 300 Dev Days API collection. Okay. Now a collection is simply it's simply like a folder, and you can then go ahead to create so many HTTP requests inside that collection. So it's a way to group your API requests. All right. You can choose to create API requests if you want to without going the route of setting up a collection. I would always recommend you set up a collection so you can have a way to group, API requests. Even on Postman, you do the same thing. Almost all API tools I have used, give you the ability to create collections. All right. So we can simply click on the plus sign here to create a new request, or we can click on new HTTP request, to create a new request. We have some shortcuts, so you can use Control N or Command N if you're on a Mac, right? That would simply give you access to creating a new request. So I just use the shortcut now, Control N, right? On my MacBook, I use Command N, right? So that brought up this screen. So you see we have different API options, right? Get, post, put. Basically, this is for fetching items. Post is for sending items to the server, right? You send like a JSON to the server. We would get to experiment with some of these things later. Okay, like for the task that you guys are working on, you are going to be using a post because the backend was designed to accept the post. All right. So basically, if the backend is designed to accept the post in a particular endpoint, so for example, if I say let's go to JSON placeholder, which is what we are going to be testing with. All right. So on JSON placeholder, you see we have an example like this. This is to fetch an item, right? And when we are fetching, we're using get, okay? So if I press send, this is going to fetch that particular item /1, right? Slash to do /1. So you see we have that item right here. Okay. So it says 200 OK, which means the request was successful. The request succeeded. All right. So we have that particular API, that particular data, returned to us. If we say /2, it's going to return the second item. You see ID of 2. The data is different as well. Okay. /3, /4, just like that, /5. Okay. And if we just want to get probably all of them, you can just say /to-dos, okay, and it's going to give us, I think, about 100 of them. All right, so you see we have about 100 to-dos, which is an array of 100 to-do objects. Okay, all right. So if we go back to the option we had initially /1, we get one item. Now we have the parameters. You can pass in parameters. You see we have the body. If you are making a post request, so I'll give an example here. So if we're trying to make a post request to /post, so you see we have post, we can make a post request to /post. So I can simply go to /posts, all right, and I can make a post request. Okay, when making the post request, I have to pass in the body. So I'll click on body and select JSON because that is what they expect the body to look like. Okay, so I can give this an ID maybe of like 101. That's the user ID. For the post ID 101. I don't think we need to send the user ID, by the way. Yeah, but I mean that was successful as well. You see, it says created, right? So I mean that is not going to be created on the server itself because it's just trying to give us an example, just mocking it to tell us that this request was successful. Okay, but it's not going to create this data on the server because the server does not belong to us. Okay, all right. So I can also go ahead and change the title here. So let's say, hello world, this is a new blog post. All right. And I can set the body. So I can just set the body to say, let's take off completed. Okay, we probably don't even need the yeah, so let's just say the body is this is a new blog post and we are just testing with JSON placeholder. All right, so let's send this. Now you see we get that response as well. I'm going to show you a practical example using a realistic backend server. Okay, now we are not doing backend just yet, but for the sake of showing you how Insomnia works, we're going to perform a get request and a post request using a real backend server. So I'm going to pull up a backend server that I just worked on recently with Vue.js. Let us see if I can even remember the location of that. I think it should be under Brain Projects, Platforms, and Link Shortener. Okay, so the Link Shortener API service. All right. So let's just go ahead and run this, backend. So I'm going to say dev server. All right. So this is going to run a backend server. and this backend server is connecting to a database online, MongoDB, right, on port 5000. Okay, so you don't need to see the server itself. That's not the point. The point is to be able to send an item, right? So let's go to HTTP. It's running on my local machine, 5000. Okay, and this is where I am going to make that request right now. So if we follow what we have in this application, let me go ahead and open it just to see the endpoints because I simply cannot remember the exact endpoints. Okay, so let's go to the project again. Bold click package. Okay, I think I am already making a mistake there. Platforms. Okay, so I have that code link shortener API service. Yeah. So I don't need to zoom in on the terminal, right? This is what we are looking at. Okay, Moses, please confirm if this is clear enough. Let me zoom in on this again. Zoom in, zoom in. Okay. So Moses, please confirm if this particular page is clear enough, right? On this one, we don't necessarily need to, like see the. I mean, it's not right. It's simply an API, code, and we're not, covering that just yet. Okay. So I just want to take a look at what the routes look like. Okay, so this is what the route look like here. You see router to post. So this is what we need to call shorting, right? And okay, let me just zoom in on this part. So this is a backend thing, by the way. It's just showing like the route we're trying to call. Okay, so we're calling shorting. We also have some, security guard, right? So as you can see, we can't send. We can't send. We're going to have a failing request if we don't send some secrets, right? We have to send some secrets. Now I'm going to take off that secret because it's not necessary for our example. So if I go to shorten and I send in some information, what do we need to send in? Let's take a look at what we need to send. Okay, so if I go to the link schema, for example, you see it is expecting us to send in a long URL, a custom back half, and a website. Now these are required, right? Only the custom back half is optional. So it's expecting a long URL. Let's copy that. All right. That is one of the things it is expecting. So we can just assume that the long URL here, we're going to put that in there. The custom back half, we're also going to put that in here. Okay. And this is what your JSON looks like, by the way. And then the website, the website, we just want to know, okay, who is making this call. So for example, I can say the website is Top University. It has to be a valid URL, right? But let's just put that in as a string without making it a valid URL. So let's also say we are expecting to shorten this website 300 dev days, right? If I should send this ordinarily, you see it's telling us that the long URL must be valid, right? This is because we have stated that we expect to have a valid URL inside our backend, but that is not, that is not the point. The point is it is telling us that this is a bad request. We should go ahead and make this better. Okay, now we are making a post request and we are sending data. If we are making a get request to this endpoint, it is going to tell us that, okay, now we get short URL not found because we actually have a get request following this pattern, right? If we don't have a get request following this pattern, it will tell us that it does not recognize this particular URL. Okay, now it is simply trying to fetch the short URL before routing us back to the original thing. But you see, we don't really have a short URL just yet, okay, following this shorting, pattern, right? So let's go back to post and let us successfully create the URL first. I have to put in HTTPS, which is a valid URL, okay? If I send this again, it is telling us website must be valid as well. So let's make this valid as well, okay? And I am not passing in a custom backup. If I send this one more time, it's going to tell us that it does not recognize the client credential because I mentioned that we have some security guard. I'm going to take off that guard because I don't want to pass in any security details to the header, right? So I am going to take that off. Okay, I'm going to just assume that our application does not need that in this example. So now that I've taken it off, I need to wait for a while for our application to restart. It has restarted. So I can send this now, and so it said the link validation failed, right? Right. Channel ID is required. Now that is another, it's another thing we added, to our header. So we have to, of course, go ahead into our header to add that particular item. So in our header, we said that we want to be able to get a client ID so that we can track, where this is coming from. This is coming from the web, just in this example. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're passing the right thing. Okay, client ID. Now I am not very sure what that should look like. Let's see. The channel ID is required. Hmm. Okay. We are going to go back into our application just to be sure, right? So this is something I built already, and I'm not, very sure what that should look like. So right here it says channel ID. So this is what actually specifies, that it is required. I'm going to take it off, right? I'm going to take it off so we don't have to, stress ourselves figuring out what the backend should look like. So let's take it off. Let's delete what we have in here. Okay, for now, let's just take all that off. All right, so let's try to send this again one more time, to see if that works. If we have an error, it will state, the error that we get. All right, but now we just turn that off, and as you can see, oh, we actually do have an error, right? We do have an error. It was unable to connect to our DB, so I need to figure out why we are having that error. Let us save this one more time. Okay. Uh, I think that is because I have probably, okay, good. So now I deleted it completely, right? So we are not expecting to pass in that channel ID. And as you can see, it says 200, okay. It was able to create that, short URL. Ideally, this should have been 201, right? 201 means created. We'll get to explore that, later. But now you see we are able to create that short URL, okay? In this example, we cannot use this particular URL because we are running on our local host. But now we can simply call this, create short URL, which is, one of the requests we have in our collection. We can go ahead to create a new HTTP request, and we can simply call this, let's first put in the path, localhost 3000, right? Sorry, that was 5,000. So this is a GET request to at least get this short URL and redirect us to the main page that we have added initially when we created the short URL. This is a GET request, okay? If I should call this now, it simply should, redirect us to the original website, which is 300 dev days on Top Universe. Okay, so as you can see, that is exactly what happened here. This is the 300 dev days. It was able to get that short URL, and it simply redirected us to this page. All right. So hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense to you. We are using a GET request as specified in our code base on the back end, and we use the POST request here. In order to call this on the front end, you can simply click on the POST request, for example. When you click on the POST request, all you have to do is click on this drop down here and click on generate code. When you click on generate code, you see that it gives you the exact code that you can use on your front end. Okay, so you can copy this and use it within your front end code. If you are running a different, service, maybe you are running Go, C Sharp, PHP, whatever it is, Python, you can see the equivalent code here and you can simply copy into your application. For some of us right now working with Vue, what we are using is Axios. So I simply need to click on Node and then click on this drop down, right? And I select Axios. And it gives us the exact Axios code that we need to use to make that request from the front end, which is your browser, right? Which is your JavaScript code, okay? Your Vue Js code. It gives us that exact code. All right. Now for the GET request, I can simply click on done. Let's go to the GET request. Let's click on this, click on generate code. And now you see the GET request as well that you need to use in your JavaScript or your Vue.js code while using Axios, of course. Okay. Since you are using, ES6, of course, you can simply go ahead and say import Axios from Axios. You don't need to use this, but this is valid. Okay. All right. So someone is saying, please, the form is not working. I think you should probably copy that into your browser instead of trying to click. Hope this makes sense. We're actually stopping here today. I want you guys to, go into the task that we have given you and, start your implementation already. All right. Go to the WhatsApp group, go to the Discord server, drop your questions, ask for your team leads, right? We have several groups. Ask for your team leads and ask your team lead what you can start working on already. Okay. If your team lead is not active, if your team lead is not responding, tag me on the WhatsApp group or on the Discord server. Let me know that your team lead is not responding so we can get a replacement as fast as possible for your entire team. All right. So thank you very much for joining this session, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, I would give you 2 minutes to drop your questions in the chat here. If we don't have any questions, I'll be expecting to see the engagements on the Discord server starting this evening, right? So go ahead and ask your questions if you have any. Okay. You can also clone the first code sample I shared with you, right? So I'm going to push that to GitHub. So you can just go ahead and clone that. So we have that right here. This is what we have worked on, right? While we're on this call. So I'm going to perform that push to GitHub right now. Okay. So let's see what is changing. Okay, URL shop now. Let us see API calls, right? Okay, so let's go back one step into 300 dev days. All right, so git status, git add. Mhm. All right, so I'm trying to figure out what I have in the URL shortener project here. I think it was a sample. Probably this was a sample project we created yesterday. Oh yeah, I think it was. So what you're going to be checking out for today's class is the API calls. Okay, so that's the Vue project that basically fetches APIs from JSON placeholder. Saves those API in the store, in the Pinia store, and then we access the API, the blog data from the blogs .view page. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and add everything here. So commits, I would say added the API call project or the API call and the URL shortener project to this repository. Okay. So let's do a git push. All right. So this is basically pushing straight to main. So go ahead and clone the repository, right? So git remote show origin. So you can see the repository is straight under my account, right? 300 dev days Vue JS classes. And I usually share this in the chat. So go ahead and check the WhatsApp chat. I will drop this on Discord after the call. So if you're looking for this, check out the 300 dev days channel on the Discord server. Hope that makes sense. So let me check the chat. What do you use to give your terminal command intuitive? Okay. So someone is saying, please, can I get the attendance form on LinkedIn? Yeah, please, someone should share that on LinkedIn, or you can check the WhatsApp group. Maybe that will be shared on WhatsApp. Okay, so for my terminal, I'm using Fish, and I don't like giving a lot of details about that because it might sound confusing to a lot of you. So this is not part of the class, by the way. So I use the Fish terminal. Of course, it basically gives me all this stuff, right? And yeah, there are other options, but I use Fish. So you can simply check out Fish. Just search for Fish terminal on your browser. If you can't install it, holler at me on Discord, and I'll probably give you some directions. Okay, so I use the Fish terminal. All right, so thanks, guys. Do have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you in the next class. Bye.